Okay, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of on one of the last topics we were talking about with last week you and I spoke about men in the Democratic Party, and we spoke about Democrats and where we can improve. Which I think one of the things that we agree on is Democrats have the policy, we have the people, we have charisma, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Where we sometimes struggle, I think, is trying to, and we talked about this last week, is trying to be all things to all people at all times.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to, if you're talking to a certain group of people, emphasize parts of your message and talk directly to them, talk about what affects them. I think it's okay to polish up your remarks. Like I said, I don't think you need to over police, or there's a place and a time for everything. I put the clip of that online on TikTok, on all the socials, but on TikTok especially, and it didn't blow up, but it's got like 13,000 views.
Yeah.
And there were some people that interacted in good faith, and they were commenting and saying, I agree with this, or like constructive comments where they were like in agreement,
Yeah.
which converge a little bit on Dem bashing and talking about where Democrats fall short.
Right.
I will fully admit this. First of all, TikTok reviews and filters comments that they think might be offensive.
Right.
The number of potentially offensive comments that came through, it is unbelievable. But then there were also people that commented that didn't get filtered, and I just have been deleting them because it's like, you know what? This is a troll. This is a troll. This is not somebody that is interacting in good faith. When we have these conversations, I'm talking to you about this again so the macro understanding is, for me, and what I think people need to align on is the Republican Party is still the bad party and the Democratic Party is still the better party.
Well, as James Carville says, we're still right and they're still wrong.
Yeah. But literally,
Right.
Even though kind of fuck James Carville, what the point that I want to drive home is, I said something to the degree of Democrats should button up and should be as prepared as possible and should take as many lessons as possible and apply them to what we do.
Yeah.
And fix things so that there's no room to say that Democrats are failing here, here and here. And, if people vote for Republicans despite that, then it's just more of an indictment of the voters. I reading these comments, and the people, it's men, and it's a lot of men talking about how, some of the comments, they're attacking you and me in our masculinity, and they're talking about, you two look like those weak men that men don't want to hang out with, and it's all, so the comments are nasty.
It's great.
And
I haven't read them, by the way.
What we have to be clear about is these people
not real.
There are some no. There are some people who would say that these are the people we need to win back.
No.
That this is representative of the men that have fled the Democratic Party for XYZ reason.
No.
I want to be clear and say those are not the people that I care about, because those are not people worth my time.
Yeah.
If you if you think that the way Democrats talk, if you think that the issues Democrats care about, if you think that me and you, as two brothers who talk about politics all the time, I think specifically some people were referring to the part of the conversation where I said that sometimes when you and I talk, you're worried that you're going to offend by saying something, and you adjust your language before you say the thing that you're trying to say.
I agree.
And they were seizing on that, and they were like, this is the whole problem. And I'm like, yeah, guys, listen to what we're saying. We're talking about how we need to do less of this.
Right.
Those are not people that we need to work overtime to bring into our coalition and into our tent.
Well, that's the thing. I totally agree, where social media has become a toxic cesspool, and I think it's really derailed a lot of progress that we made as a society because of the algorithms, because of the extremists that are on both sides. But the comments in particular from men, I get it a lot, and I call them the bros who come in and they want to start a fight with you, but they don't actually want to start a fight with you. And one thing that I've been starting to do, because these are real people, I just posted something last week, which I was very excited to post, and I posted it. And I was like, you know what? And this is the thing that we were talking about earlier in this episode, where I was like, I don't want to post this because I know I'm going to get harassed by the lunatics who will harass me. And lo and behold, someone who I have not talked to in 5 years, I went to college with him, great guy, decides to comment and throw a straw man argument on my comment section.
Yeah.
So I immediately respond and I say, hey man, how are you? It's been 5 years since we last talked. I got married since the last time we talked. I have cats now. I have a house now. I'm running a half marathon in July. What are you up to? And then he continued to go after my position on things. And then every time I would just respond with like we were having a conversation. I'd be like, that's amazing that you're doing X, Y, Z. These people are not real. They think that being a keyboard warrior is going to be effective.
But I think
there's no winning them back.
Right, but
it's
I think
the same thing with the Pete Buttigieg guy who commented when I said he just made LGBT history.
Right.
Objective fact. The guy commented and said, no, he didn't.
But I think even beyond the keyboard warrior aspect of it all is these are people that I think some people hand-wring about like see these people are agreeing and they're saying these things, and how do we get through to these people? You don't get through to these people. The people that you maybe get through to are, I had two, and I normally don't engage with people in comment sections because it's not worth the time. I had two exchanges this week that I was kind of impressed by. One of them was on that video where the guy came in hot and he was making fun of Democrats and talking about how Democrats are so fake, blah, 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 blah. I responded to him because he was one of the people saying like this whole conversation is the problem. And I said, watch the video again. Listen to the video again. He wanted to fight. And I said, listen to it again. This is exactly what we're talking about. What you commented is exactly what we're talking about. And then he came back with another response, and it was a little bit less antagonistic. It was still not necessarily nice. But then I responded again, and then he responded again and was like, okay, it's clear that you have a much firmer grasp of the issue than I initially realized.
Yeah.
And then he followed me on TikTok. And so like, I'm not, again, when I started this podcast, my goal is not to solely chase those people. If I can talk to those people and have a good conversation with them, that's great. That's never really been who I am.
We need to be having conversations with good faith people.
And this person has had some takes that I was like, that doesn't feel like a good take. And there were things that I wanted him to elaborate on that he mentioned, like issue-wise. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know where this is going. But like, he was willing to, I guess, engage. And by the end of it, I didn't have to cede ground. All I had to do was say, this is what I'm saying. We are essentially saying the same thing here.
Yeah.
And do I think that this person was a Kamala Harris voter? No. But like,
probably not.
The fact that person was willing to engage for a minute and then follow, and who knows how long he'll follow. Right. But it's like, okay, that person is maybe gettable, is maybe like, okay, if we can adjust the way we speak about things, if we can adjust, our angles, how we angle in on a certain issue, maybe that's where some of these people who are on the fringe, because I think he said something like, I'm more of a libertarian. I don't want to see Republicans winning everything all the time, but Democrats are like crazy or something like that in their current form. And like, that's where it's like, okay, you have somebody saying, he's not a Republican, he's a libertarian. I'm assuming he voted for Trump. I'm assuming that he typically votes more Republican than Democrat, but he acknowledged, like, I'd like to see some check and balance here. Right. The other conversation I had was it was kind of related to the Tennessee Supreme Court ruling with the transgender transition thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to get super into that. Mm-hmm. What I am referring to is there was another post in relation to that where it was one of those infographics that had a child with wings on their back, and one of the wings was rainbow and one of the wings was the trans colors, and it was a picture of a parent like cutting the wings, and it said, don't be your child's first bully.
Okay.
Essentially saying, don't be an asshole to your children who are figuring out who they are.
Okay.
And his initial, I commented something like, oh, because as always on Facebook now, if you post anything that makes any kind of sense, the laugh react is number 1 or 2 in the reactions, because they all have to let you know how they feel about it.
Yeah, right.
And I commented something.
It's an easy unfriend button, by the way.
Well, no, it's not even friends. It's like
fake people.
It's a public profile with and so I commented something about, okay, here comes the cult with, their laugh react to anything that makes sense. And this guy responded about how, like, how does this like radical left, like mentally ill left make sense? You're talking about having children wanting to transition at age 5, and I don't support that. And so you get a comment like that, and I responded, I guess I had the time that day. I don't know what was going through my mind, but I commented back and I said, okay, what about, because the picture was trans and like just like gay. And I commented, I was like, what about an 11-year-old boy who knows that they like boys, that they have crushes on the other boys in their class? I'm talking about myself here.
Yeah.
Although I didn't have crushes on the boys in my class because they were all mean. But that was my response. And his response was something like, I have no issue with the gay community. Like I don't have an issue, good or bad, with them. They're fine. But I'm against children transitioning until they are an adult, like until the brain is fully formed. And so that's
a lot of regulations for Republicans, by the way.
Well, but so I see a comment like that. And though my initial response, this is what when I say taking down the temperature, this is what I mean. This person didn't respond after a couple of comments, but when I see a comment like that, I see, okay, you're saying you don't have an issue with gay people. So that takes care of 3 of the letters in the core 4 of the alphabet mafia. Then when you get to the T, this person, I am assuming this person has a lot of transphobic views. I'm assuming this person is no friend to trans people, and I'm assuming would probably be not somebody that I would want to talk to about this issue too in depth. But then I get to that T part, and it says, I'm against people transitioning until their brains are fully formed. And I go, okay, at face value, that comment is not entirely unreasonable if you take all of the assumed context out of it.
Right.
I think it's okay for somebody to say, this is my opinion. Now, my response to that is, I don't think the government has any right to tell people that they can't.
It's between the parents and the kids, right?
I think I'm conflicted where it's like, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Like, I think if somebody, there could be somebody at age 11, and I think we both know somebody who thought that their gender was something when they wasn't. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Who thought it was something that it wasn't, and then kind of grew up and is now in their late teens and I'm a girl.
Yeah.
And which is the gender that they were assigned at birth.
Right.
So it's like there are some people at young ages who are figuring it out and who think that there's something for a moment and then grow out of it. There are others who don't. And there are stats that show that it's much more the latter than the former. But like, I think this is where some of these conversations have the potential to actually change minds.
We have to be able to have conversations, but it has to have 2 willing participants who want to have that conversation.
Right.
So for something that is this hot button issue, I'll listen to someone who I disagree with on this case, as long as they want to actually have a conversation with it.
And as long as they are also willing to maybe change their mind if presented with new information.
Right. And I think that, like, in this specific case, like, I think that's too much government overreach where it's banning it.
Yeah.
That's something that
I do too. I agree.
If that's something that so my personal view on this is maybe after you're 18, once you're 18, then you can make that choice. That's a choice that I would say. But if parents and the kids want to do it, that's their choice to do it, and that's the repercussions that they're going to live with.
I remember when
it's the freedom to do it. That's kind of the goal of my whole political philosophy. It's why I'm pro-choice. Like, I have no business telling a woman. I mean, obviously, I think there should be limits on it, but you can't tell someone, you need to carry your rapist baby to term, or your stillborn to term if you don't want to go through that horrific trauma.
Right.
Like, there's things that the government should have no say in, and this is one of them where, for this specific instance, maybe my position would be like, let's wait until that child's 18, and then they can make that choice to go there. But I think with other issues, there's a lot of government overreach from the Republicans on these social issues that I just don't believe in.
And I think the part of the point of what I'm trying to say is that I could have responded to this person as like the liberal bot that just kind of spouts off the talking points about whatever the issue is.
Right.
And it's not engaging and not going into any kind of nuance or detail or anything.
Right.
There will be people that listen to this and hear me saying this and they'll go, okay, he's a transphobe. And then there will be other people, including I think some trans people, who'd be like, okay, that's valid.
I think trans people should be protected at all costs, whatever they need to do.
I agree. But what I'm trying to say is like, this is like, let's say that person that was commenting was like a Democrat, a rank and file Democrat who had some misgivings or questions or
and there are those people
that were uncomfortable talking about trans issues.
And you met a Democrat who hates gay marriage this past election cycle. Do you remember that one? In the housing project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so that was a fun conversation.
That's horrible.
We were there for Harris, and she was blasting Obama, going after gay marriage as I'm talking to her with this voice, being like, will you vote for Kamala Harris, girl? But I'm doing a project for work right now. It's called the State of the Rainbow Address.
Yeah.
I'm on their ERG council.
Yeah.
And I was getting into some stats, and the world, I mean, we've seen some erosion in the last 4 or 5 years on even support for gay marriage. It's still it's at a near all-time high.
Right.
Like we're talking from like 74% support to 69% support.
Nice.
Across 23 countries. It's an Ipsos like survey.
Yeah.
But like the numbers for gay marriage remain relatively strong. The numbers for gay adoption are still like not as high as I want them, but they're like,
what is it?
I think it's 59% across those 23 countries. It's higher in America.
Of course. Yeah, as it should be.
But, and just the marriage number is also slightly higher in America too.
Good.
But those numbers are still mostly high. And then you get into things like they surveyed like how comfortable people are with LGBT people showing affection in public. And it was like 47% is comfortable.
What? I don't like seeing straight affection in public.
I don't either. But like, so you get into that. And then you get into... what was the other one?
Oh
I don't remember. There was something else where it was at 39%. And then you get into, they specifically surveyed trans people in sports.
Oh boy.
And I'm not talking about, we don't have the time today.
Yeah.
But like,
it's like 90 against, isn't it?
It's
like 90%
of the 23 countries surveyed, 22% of people support transgender athletes competing in sports as part of the gender they identify with rather than the one they were assigned. That is down 10% from 4 years ago.
Well, because it wasn't an issue back then.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when I say issue, I mean like not something that was like politically charged, I
right.
should say.
So like I'm sitting here and right after that, I Googled just to be sure, like what's the stats on this? How many transgender athletes are there? There's 10.
Yeah.
In the NCAA, is that?
Yeah, and that's where
and so it's like
differences.
this. So I'm like, this is not
an issue,
a real problem.
It's not a real problem.
Right now, Democrats are not winning this messaging war.
But it's up to the NCAA to regulate that.
Right.
It's not up to the federal
I personally,
government.
if you were to like put a lethal object to my head and tell me pick a position on this, I'm always gonna like fall more on the side of the trans people.
The trans people are also not competing for like Duke. They're not it's not a thing.
But what I was gonna say was like my knee-jerk reaction to this would be this feels like a case-by-case thing.
Yeah.
And the overarching point that I'm trying to make, that was my little Pride Month stats thing. Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride Month.
But like
and Men's Mental Health Month.
Men's Mental Health Month. And Pride Month.
And Juneteenth.
And Pride Month. And Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Yes, all the things. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we are not currently winning on trans people in sports, and it has been blown up into this huge fucking thing. And we're going to continue losing ground, not because of trans people and not because we support trans rights, but because we don't know, I don't think we know how to effectively talk about it. Because I think a lot of us retreat to basic talking points like trans people are people, trans women, and that's all true. And I will always fall on the side of, I want to be very clear about that this is not me hedging. This is not me trying to not offend. I will always, if it's between a bigot and a trans person, I will always go with the trans person. But if there's room to have good faith discussion with somebody who maybe has questions, who is maybe not understanding, and I say the same shit when it comes to gay stuff. I remember that's the only way I can compare myself to anybody in this situation is I remember like 13 years ago, now the response is like when you ask questions to a person who's oppressed in any way, it's a lot of people are like, well, it's not my job to talk to you about that. You need to do your own research or figure it out. I remember having a conversation with one of my, I've told you about this before. He came from Clarion, which is a conservative area.
Oh yeah.
I was in college with him. We were in an a cappella group together. He was a registered Republican. I talked about him in the first ever episode of this, where he was one of the people in the room with me and my three friends, my senior year of high school or college, who was
Ben Carson,
Ted Cruz, or Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders. But he straight up, like when he learned that I was gay, we identified like a mutual interest in music or whatever. We had lunch one time. I could tell it was weird, a little, not weird, but like a little different for him. Cause it's like he's wearing his like basketball shorts and like hoodie. And like I don't think he knew gay people where he came from. And I sat down with him and I had dyed blonde hair like I do right now at the time. Yeah. And I'm like sitting there talking about Ariana Grande and like, it was just different. And so once that level of comfort was established, where it was like, oh, we're different, but we're cool with each other, he like straight up like asked me questions about like gay sex.
I remember that,
Like, and I like that might make somebody uncomfortable. It didn't make me uncomfortable. And in fact, I was kind of like, this is like, I was so impressed because it's like, I don't get an ounce of like bad faith from this person. I don't get an ounce of like, you're making this weird. He was just curious. And for some people, Googling that stuff might be weird. Like you might have people like looking at your history. I don't know. But like, he just asked me questions as somebody that he knew that could tell him these things. And I told him these things. And like throughout the year, like we were in an a cappella group together. And then he like did a musical with me. And like, TMI, hope you're not listening, Mom and Dad, like during that process is when I like lost the V card.
Okay.
And I told him about it. And he had questions. And it was like, you might think in today's day and age, the answers are obvious. And it's like, well, why are you asking me about that? For someone like him who's never really thought about this, it's never been on his mind.
Right.
He wants to know how certain things work.
Yeah.
Why not? Why, like, if you feel comfortable, and I felt comfortable talking to him about it and telling him things and answering his questions, why would I refuse that conversation? And this is one of the people that ended up in the dorm room, voted for Hillary the next year. Like, this is somebody who, like, his own opinions and beliefs evolved and changed, and like being in that college setting and having friends that weren't like him that he could talk to and ask questions to changed his mind and helped him understand things. Not that I think he ever came from a bad place.
No,
but like
just didn't know
that's
anyone.
how it's done.
Yeah.
And that was 2015. So like that is like the gay marriage was not legal when I had that conversation with him.
Oh wow.
And like nationwide. And like at the time, like I think it was like 55% of the country supported gay marriage. Like this is
ballooning.
Yeah.
In a good
so
way.
like this is how people come to change their
terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And so I think that's where I want to end. And I feel like I just talked at you for the last like 10 or 15 minutes, but
that's
like,
okay.
That's kind of where I want to end this. Cause it's like, I think we need more of that. I don't know. I don't have the answer for all of it. I'm going to get frustrated sometimes, but I think we do have to be able to, as long as someone's approaching in good faith and wants to know what you think about something, I don't think there's any harm in sitting down and being like, here's what I think. And we might not see eye to eye on this. And somebody else, you know, the people that I'm defending might not even agree with my answer here, but like there has to be a way to better talk.
Yeah.
We don't have to abandon our principles, but we have to be able to level with people. And that's where I want to end this week because we've been in here for like 3 hours.
Well, thank you so much for joining Left, Wrong, and Center, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.